Was Harold Lloyd crazy to climb a tall building, or did he really climb that building at all? Find out today on Really Old Movies. Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing Harold Lloyd's classic film, Safety Last from 1923, and some essential movie information. So, Safety Last is Harold Lloyd's most recognizable film, especially due to the iconic clock tower scene where he's hanging off of it. But it's been discovered recently that he didn't actually climb up that building. Instead, a large set was built and placed on top of another building. This is why the background is the same the whole time he's climbing up it. And the fake building he climbed was around 2 stories tall. And when he tested out the mattress below he used, in case he fell off of it, he threw a dummy onto it, and the dummy bounced off the mattress and bounced off the building and hit the street below. So it really wasn't that safe either. And Harold would have fallen to his death if he really did fall off of that building. Now, the shots of a man climbing up the building, though, the wide shots, are actually his stunt double. And he withheld the information about it until after Harold died, just because he didn't want to take the thunder and make people think that what Harold did wasn't dangerous. Because Harold did do something very, very dangerous with that. And Harold did a good chunk of the other stunt work in the movie anyways, so that was probably the main one he didn't really do to that extent of actually climbing up a really tall building. We have to consider Harold was missing half of his hand, his right hand, right? The fact that he was even able to climb up that 2-story tall fake building they built is incredible too. And the fact that they're able to position it in a way that it looked like it was really that building was incredible. And I'll get into that more later in my cinematography special effects review. But yeah, not to steal any of Harold's thunder at all, he still did some crazy stunt work in this movie. And the fact that he even climbed up the building he did climb was just incredible. So now I'll get into the basic plot of the film. So Boyd, played by Harold Lloyd, he moves to the city to work so that he can marry the girl he loves, the girl of his dreams. Now, he sends her jewelry and claims to be doing very well financially, but in reality, he's a lowly department store worker. And, how many of us would do that, right? One day, she surprises him by showing up unannounced to his store, where he has to put on a ruse by pretending he's the general manager. He even orders around people there that are his supervisors who absolutely hate him. And Harold has a roommate that's a very skilled climber, and he decides that they should put on a show where Harold's roommate climbs up the building, dressed as Harold, so that Harold's employer could give him a bigger paycheck and give him a raise, because Harold wasn't making enough to actually provide for him and his would-be wife. So Harold climbs up the first flight, about 10 feet or 20 feet or so that people believe it's actually him climbing. And what he's supposed to do is he's supposed to get into the room above there, through that window, change clothes with his roommate, and then his roommate would climb the rest because he's a pretty skilled climber. But the roommate is being chased the whole time by a cop that they had messed with earlier in the film. Harold thought it was a friend of his, so they kind of tripped over the cop, and it turns out it wasn't Harold's friend. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, the roommate, he's just running away from this cop the whole time, and he keeps saying, just climb up one more flight, Harold, one more flight, and then I'll lose this guy. But at the end, he's not able to lose the guy at all. So Harold is at the top, at the clock, which is on top of the building, and various things keep happening. There's people in each of the windows going up. It's almost like an apartment building. Some people are doing some woodwork, and they'll stick out a piece of wood and it knocks Harold almost off the building. There's one where there's a guy with a dog that's jumping and barking at him through the window, and all kinds of crazy stuff are happening that could have potentially knocked him off the building. Even though he almost falls off the clock, he pulls through and ends up on top where he meets his girl, and they decide to get married and live happily ever after despite Harold not having enough money. Overall, my view on the plot, I gave a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was okay. The main attraction of this movie is the iconic scene where Harold climbs up the tower, and that takes a good chunk of the movie. The movie's only like an hour and 10, maybe 15 minutes long, and the clock tower scene's like 20 minutes of it. So a good chunk is spent and dedicated to him climbing it. And I liked it, but I thought it was a little anticlimactic to have the film end with him climbing the tower because afterwards it ends pretty abruptly, like as soon as he's on top. I would have liked to at least have seen like a clip of him and his girl like walking into the church to get married or whatever it was, but it's okay. It's fine. We didn't get that. I just wish we got a little bit more out of it. But other than that, it was a funny plot and I really liked it. Acting wise, I gave a 5 out of 5. I absolutely love Harold Lloyd, especially when he's in the department store where he's just continually working his way out of crazy situations, such as being late for work. He's like crab walking on the floor, and then he tricks his supervisor into walking in an elevator. I also like his roommate. I thought it was pretty hilarious that the roommate couldn't get away from the cop. Even at the end of the film, he's like, I'll catch up with you later. I still gotta lose him. He's like super far away. And the title card they had, it's like really tiny text of him saying that. I thought that was really clever too. But yeah, I loved the actors in this. It was hilarious. Directing wise, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I loved each of the stunt scenes and the comedic ones they were able to pull off, especially in the department store. When Harold is like swamped with all these customers who are wanting fabric and they just keep ripping up his clothes. And it's hilarious. It's like a huge group of women just like shouting at him like, this doesn't work, or I need a new thing. And he's just totally swamped with tons of people. And one of the ways he gets out of it, because there's a lady who's trying to pay for her thing. He has an order ready for her. He says, hey, who dropped $50? And all of them crouch down except for the one lady. And then he gives her order. It's hilarious. I was very intrigued. It was a really funny movie. And I just love the directing and how they are able to set up each scene. It was hilarious. Always leading up to a gag. Now, cinematography and special effects, I gave a 5 out of 5. I was very impressed with the camera work and how they were able to almost seamlessly blend in that fake building into the real backdrop of the city. Nowadays, we probably would have done a green screen or something else like that, but they were actually on top of a building. It's not like they rear projected or put on a scene behind him. No, he was actually on top of a building. Whether or not he actually climbed up the one with the clock tower on it, that's true, but he was actually outside doing that. It's just absolutely crazy. And he would have died if he fell off of it either way, Very impressive work. Now the music, I gave a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. It really fit in with the comedic elements. It had great comedic timing with it. And even the suspenseful scene of Harold hanging off the clock was very good music there too. Now, I don't think it was utilized enough, but I liked it just enough to give it a 4 out of 5. That's still a really good score. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 4.5 out of 5. And this is a great film. This is the second time I've seen it. I liked it even more this time around. And it just proves that humor transcends time, that it is still enjoyable. Whatever's funny will remain funny forever. And, this movie's almost 100 years old. And the fact that I still think the humor and the gags and all the funny stuff in it still land just shows the comedic genius and the comedic abilities of all the people involved in this film. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. Especially if you're a fan of comedy and slapstick and even Looney Tunes. A lot of the Looney Tunes cartoons are based off of silent actors and comedians. And if also you're curious about the silent era, this is a great movie to start with. It's great to start off with one that's enjoyable and fun to look at and laugh at. It's also great for getting to know Harold Lloyd. He's sometimes known as the third hilarious actor after Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. And to me, I think he definitely deserves a spot up there with them. All right, well, those are my thoughts on Safety Last from 1923. And thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. And new episodes of which are released Fridays, well, for the most part, Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also have a YouTube channel called Really Old Movies, where I'll be doing my first live stream on February 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I'll be talking about my top 10 1920s movies. So come prepared with however big or small your list is. I'd love to discuss it with you guys as well. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Really Old Movies, where you could get behind the scenes and up-to-date information about the week's particular film, as well as any other channel updates. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.